Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. Fox News is again getting mocked and ridiculed. And yes, that happens a lot, but this time, the stupidity and ignorance were epic, even by Fox and Friends standards.
So Senator Van Hollen was able to get his interview.
The hosts were talking about Senator Van Hollen, Democrat from Maryland, meeting in El Salvador with jailed migrant Kilmar Garcia. Watch Lawrence Jones.
So Democrats have margaritas with MS-13.
Well, we don't know that.
But
That's what he did. It was a margarita.
Pictures look like it was water. I think that was.
Yeah.
Why do they have salt on the rim of water, though?
You're saying that because President Bukele said that miraculous.
Why did they have salt on the rim? Why margaritas? Well, you could read the multiple reporting about that in the New York Times, but Fox chose to read the propaganda posted by El Salvador's Trump-loving president.
President Bukele said that miraculously he's risen from the death camps and the torture, now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in a tropical paradise of El Salvador.
Okay, that was El Salvador's president. Here is the New York Times. Quote, according to a person familiar with the situation, a Bukele aide placed the two glasses with cherries and salted rims on the table in front of Mr. Van Hollen and Mr. Abrego Garcia in the middle of their meeting in an attempt to stage the photo. The New York Times delivered this reporting before Fox and Friends went on the air this morning, but Fox ignored it.
I don't know what deal
So
they
bizarre.
worked at, I don't know what they were drinking, but at the end of the day, why are you doing this with a criminal?
Garcia's a criminal, says Fox and Friends, and thanks to the must subscribe the news and Jonathan Larson's hilarious sarcasm, we now know this. Senator joins Salvadoran crime gang. I'm going to read lengthy quotes from the news and cover some of this with copyright-free photographs, but one warning. Go to the bathroom now, because when I first read these passages earlier, I laughed so hard I nearly peed myself. Okay, here we go. Senator Chris Van Hollen, Democrat from Maryland, yesterday was spotted associating with a known gang member, making Van Hollen also a known gang member, according to guidelines published by the crime-fighting geniuses running the Trump administration. Van Hollen was photographed in El Salvador speaking with and presumably receiving marching orders from Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the notorious terrorist, human trafficker, drug lord, full-time sheet metal apprentice, and documented member of the feared international skilled labor cartel known as Sheet Metal Air, Rail, and Transportation Local 100. The two men can be seen looking at each other and making eye contact, recognized techniques used in planning prison escapes, drug smuggling, and trafficking sweet, innocent, darling little baby girl angels. The photograph shows Abrego Garcia and Van Hollen posing with 3 glasses of water known in gang circles as Tren de Agua. Van Hollen appears to be wearing a jacket and long-sleeve shirt. Common gang methods for concealing gang tattoos such as Mother and the Michael Jordan logo. Earlier in the day, Van Hollen made multiple attempts to break into the prison and liberate Abrego Garcia. Van Hollen was stopped by law enforcement but managed to escape. Abrego Garcia's gang association affiliation membership leadership is undisputed based on the rigorous U.S. law enforcement guidelines for how to tell who's in Tren which presumably can also be applied to MS-13. Van Hollen's meeting with Abrego Garcia, his efforts to break into the prison, and his social media posts check multiple boxes on the Trump administration's list of ways to justify deciding someone as a gang member. This includes associate, preparatory meetings, conducts or facilitates business, communicating, social media posts by the subject displaying symbols of TDA. When Abrego Garcia was first arrested in 2019, he had no criminal record, which is standard cover for known criminals. Police were able to prove Abrego Garcia's MS-13 connection in part because he was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat, which proves that you are an MS-13. Members are also known to wear telltale clothing such as underwear and socks. In his picture yesterday, Abrego Garcia is wearing a Kansas City Chiefs hat, a visual code to tip off fellow members that someone is in prison and wants their Bulls hat back. And Abrego Garcia has been caught on camera before. An undated photo obtained by the immigrant advocacy group CASA shows Abrego Garcia in his gang gear, sporting the iconic black t-shirt that instantly marks anyone wearing it as an MS-13 member, as well as a cap with the classic MS-13 bull symbol. He can be seen laughing savagely as he ruthlessly attacks a younger gang member. A metallic inflatable 3 appears in the foreground, street shorthand for 13. The gang member seen with Abrego Garcia appears to be a member of the rival Tren de Aragua, as its train insignia, tren in Spanish, is clearly distinguishable in multiple places on his onesie. Van Hollen's initiation into the vast MS-13 hierarchy has potentially huge implications. Van Hollen is already a known member of another criminal organization, the U.S. Senate, which illegally funds and supplies arms for criminal use around the world. The Senate already has 100 members, after expanding from the original MS-13 colonies. They are literally chosen by and represent American citizens whose flag pays homage to MS-13 with its distinctive 13 stripes. So bienvenido to MS-13, news f***ers. Subscribe to the Fox News. Trust me, you will be happier. They watch Fox News and other conservative freak shows, so we do not have to. By the way, speaking of Fox News, the lone liberal on staff, Jessica Tarlov, recently fact-checked her co-hosts on The Five and left them reeling.
Abrego Garcia, there is no proof that he was an MS-13 member, and it has been debunked many times.
It's been debunked
yes, it
by
has.
liberal
It was
newspapers.
That's not true.
In a court of law,
Stop.
Section I-113 or 123 is reliable, verifiable proof that you were a member of a gang, and he was never able to rebut it.
It was based on double hearsay testimony and also a detective who was indicted merely weeks later for providing confidential information to a sex worker. He was also allegedly an alcoholic. That's how we got into this. But the point is that this man has been living in this country, out in public, meeting on an annual basis with his DHS caseworker. He goes in once a year. He talks to them. They know where he works. He's an on-the-books worker. This is not somebody who is a gangbanger. This is not somebody who has committed any other crime besides being here in this country. And he came here also based on credible threat of being murdered by a gang at home who was threatening his entire family.
Facts. Tarlov calmly but firmly cited facts, and Janine Pirro couldn't say a word.
Under the Alien Enemies Act, you deserve due process. And that's what the Supreme Court ruled. And if you go back to World War II, when we were invoking this same act, that people who were here undocumented from Japan, from Germany, from Italy, were allowed to go into a court where they could argue that they weren't a danger to this nation. Abrego Garcia was not afforded that right to come into court and to argue as to why he should not be deported. And it is not the same thing to deport someone to their home country as to send them to a prison.
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Catherine, who wrote, "What the F is happening to our country? I hate liars." Well, I look forward to reading your comments about the latest nonsense from Fox and Friends, ridiculed in hilarious fashion by one of my favorite daily newsletters, the News. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.